guys. So tonight I wanted to do a follow-up on some of the questions I didn't get to fully answer on the live feed. Um, and I came up with a lot of answers. So a couple times the question came up, what are some red flags or, things that we can look out for in relationships? And I didn't have the greatest response last night because one, I was very tipsy, and two, I was like, not thinking about relationships. So, but now I am. So let's see. The first one would be isolation. If you ever find that you only really ever hang out with them, like having a solid support group is super important. So if you notice that they're pulling you away from your friends and your family and isolating you, that would be a pretty big red flag. Triangulation. This is a narcissistic tactic, actually, where they compare you to others or use phrases like, so and so would do this for me, or, I wish you were more like so and so, and it's kind of this like compare and contrast. And it's like a means of like manipulating you into somebody else, right? Or being somebody else. I'd say if you feel like you can't trust them, your intuition, usually kicks up in moments where you're confronted with somebody that you can't really trust. And I feel like, a lot of the times we've got the rose colored glasses on and we ignore that shit because they were like, whatever. It's just one red flag. And the next thing you know, you have a whole sweater made out of red flags. um, when they say all of my exes are crazy and they frame their stories to make themselves the innocent victim, because I feel like there's three sides to every story, and so I feel like you want somebody who can be honest about their participation in the past, and then how things ended, if you even talk about it, because there's that option of not talking about it. Talking shit about others, I feel like if they're really judgmental or negative, that's a huge it's a huge sign. And like if they share other people's secrets with you, because that really lets you know that they may share your secrets. I would say ego. If you catch your partner trying to be competitive with you in an unhealthy way, like say you decide to start pursuing something and then they're like trying to one up you instead of like supporting you, and they want to be like the alpha in the relationship when a relationship dynamic shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be an alpha beta, kind of situation that's really toxic. There should be equality. um Ultimatums, I don't like those ultimatos. um they're super manipulative, and I feel like that's a way of being, really showing their insecurity when they feel like they have to give you an ultimatum. It's kind of, it's a toxic way of seeing how important they are to you. But honestly, you shouldn't have to prove yourself constantly. They should trust their own judgment as well, Um, if your friends and family hate them, if the people who love you and look out for you the most are like against this person, or they're like, that person's just not right for you, I would trust that, because they may be seeing red flags that you could be missing, right? Like I said before, we ignore some shit when we like people, and it's good to listen and be objective, when people tell you how they feel about your partner. um Not meeting any of their friends after being with them for an extended period of time. That could be an indication that they are kind of a player, right? Like, why are they hiding you? I feel like if you're going to be participating in their life, then, friends are going to be an important aspect of that. Um, they love bomb you. At first, it feels great, right? Getting spoiled, having them, dote over you. But this is also a form of grooming, right? So that later, when they fuck up, they can do these outlandish, extravagant things to kind of get you back. Um, and that's how they keep you kind of on that little hook. It's like breadcrumbing. They constantly talk about your looks, right? So narcissistic people tend to choose people that make them look good rather than people who make them feel good, right? Um, Relationships built on superficial desires are kind of doomed to fail. There has to be a connection deeper than that. There has to be kind of that feeling of like, this person is an aspect of you, right? They become that when you love them. You start loving them like you would love an aspect of yourself. And that's another reason why I think it's important to love ourselves before we try loving other people, because if we don't know how to do it with us, I guarantee you wouldn't know how to do it with somebody else, right? um, if they try to change you, right? If they don't love and accept you as you are, then they never will, right? Bottom line, that's just what it is. If they put you down, um, I've seen, like, for example, my mom was married to a pretty abusive guy. And when they would be around people, he would bring up her weight, or, like, he would make jokes about her looks and things like that, just to make her feel extra insecure. And it also, I mean, it's a dick move. But let's see. Not satisfied with just being with you, right? So if they're trying to reach these milestones where they're like, we need to get married, we need to have a baby, we need to buy a house, we need to do this, and it's like, there needs to be a level of comfortability with one another. That shouldn't be something that's like pushed. I feel like if you decide to do that, that's cool. But this kind of goes back into like ultimatums, because I feel like, a lot of the times there are those situations where people are like, well, if you're not going to do this milestone with me, then you're not going to have me at all. And it's like, well, do you love me, or do you love the idea of reaching that milestone? Because, if you love somebody, it doesn't matter if you're married to them. It doesn't matter if you have babies or if you're moving in. I feel like you can still love them and love them on compromised terms, but like, you don't need to, like, there needs to be boundaries there. You can't just like try to push somebody into something that they're not ready for, or even sometimes they don't want to even do that, and you have to accept that. um if they're emotionally exhausting, right? If you're feeling drained and depleted, sorry, after you hang out with them, it's a good indication that you're with an energy vampire, right? Somebody who just like sucks the life right out of you. Um, Guilt trips, hate it, super manipulative. And same with whining. I would say that kind of goes hand in hand when people try to use your empathy against you, to like manipulate you into something. Um, Head games. Like, for example, when people say, no, I don't want anything for my birthday, and then they get mad if you don't do something for their birthday. I feel like that's kind of fucked up shit. Um, Passivity, right? If they constantly agree with you, right? They pander to hold your attention rather than be honest about their opinions, or like, talk to you straight up. Um, it's kind of like they're hiding themselves from you and just putting a mirror there. So instead of you actually getting to know them, you're just getting to know their version of who you are, right? They don't have any plans or goals. I feel like, even little goals, even little plans, you should be actively kind of like aspiring in some direction. And even if it's not in the career field, right? Because like, not everybody is like out trying to become doctors and lawyers and stuff. But I feel like still like having like hobbies and things that bring kind of a structure to their life, and so that they can support you in your growth. If they're not in a state of growth, then they're not gonna grow with you. Right? And you don't want to outgrow somebody and have, that shit's rough. Um, if they're always late, they don't value your time. Although I have a tendency to be late sometimes on just because life, so there are exceptions to that, I would say. Single parents, trying to navigate dating, things like that. Feel like, there are exceptions. It's a case by case thing, right? Um, if they constantly tell you how perfect you are, and they like put you on a pedestal, right? That's kind of actually really toxic, because if you falter from this ideal that they created of you in their head, then it can start to create resentment, right? When the real you doesn't live up to their imagined version of who you should be or what you should do. Um, they expect a lot from you, right? You owe them nothing. And I noticed that it's usually the people who want you to expect nothing of them will be, expecting a lot from you. And I feel like that's a hard one. I've been on both sides of that, to be honest. So, I learned from doing it. They're always the hero in their stories, right? They always like paint a false image of themselves so that you see them as perfect, right? Because they don't want you to see them as as the flawed human that they are. Um, People who get mad at you when you express that they've done something to upset you. You should be free to communicate pretty openly if something bothers you in your relationship, and not feel fear of the repercussion of, bringing something like that up. Um, they're never single, right? People who need to be in a relationship, like, um, without taking any time to really, be alone or have introspection or really dive deep inside themselves. I feel like there can tend to be a codependency, and if you are somebody who has spent an extended period of time by yourself and you end up with somebody who's been consistently in relationships, that could be rough. I know, because I was in a relationship for like all of my 20s. So, coming out of that, I realized that like dating somebody who had gone a long time without being in a relationship, I was actually the unhealthy one in that scenario, where I still had shit from past relationships that I hadn't worked through, and I, fucked up some pretty good connections, but whatever. It is the journey to live and learn. They say that they need you. This is a situation where you run, okay? People should be with you because they want to be with you, not because they need to be with you. And if they need to be with you, that's a codependency situation. Um, and that's also them seeking validation from you, right? Um, and you can't do that. You can't validate another person as much as we may want to. It's not realistic to hold, somebody else's confidence in our hands. Um, Constantly complaining. They should have positive things to say. They should have good news in their life. If because eventually that will get really draining, and it goes back to the energy vampire thing. It gets to a point where you're like, this is a lot of negativity, and so that could be rough. They have a meltdown when you tell them no. You should be able to tell your partner no. I feel like this kind of goes into another one that's further down on the list, and it's childish mannerisms, and I feel like this is one of them. You like, I know it's hard to tell your partner no. Sometimes it's just the answer, right? Sometimes, and boundaries are important, and they should be strong enough to honor your boundaries without trying to push it, without trying to be manipulative, without being guilt trippy. You should 100% be able to set a boundary, and that should be safe in your connection. Um, they only help people to get something out of that. Right? Like, I feel like people should, help when they can, how they can. And I've been with people who literally wouldn't help people that if they didn't feel like they were gonna get paid back for it, or if they didn't feel like they were getting anything out of it. And I think that's pretty fucked up, considering, all the times that I've needed help in my life and people have helped me out. I feel like we gotta pay that back to the universe, Um, they say, I'm a nice person. Nice people don't have to tell you they're nice because it's evident in their actions. So there's kind of, this thing where, like, I feel that when people feel that they need to compensate in that area of being nice, they often, like, they're like, I'm a really nice guy, or I'm a really cool guy, and you find out later, probably not the case, it's, it is what it is, but that's life. Um, Toxic positivity. I feel like you should feel free to have a range of emotions, right? You are built this very complex creature who has very complex emotions. You're very multidimensional. You shouldn't be closed up in this box that any, like, bad day you have shouldn't feel like the end of anything, right? They should be able to be there with you and kind of work through the hard times with you. Um, so, be careful of people who can't tolerate any other feeling, right? That's super toxic. Go into the childish mannerisms, throwing tantrums, deep insecurities and jealousy. I feel like if you're old enough to be in a relationship, you should be mature enough to be strong in your relationship, right? And by strong, I mean, like, security wise, right? They wouldn't have chosen you if they didn't want to be with you. You shouldn't feel insecure about other people existing in the world. I feel that, when you show up as confident, it actually strengthens your relationship too, than if you show up as being deeply insecure and setting ultimatums and trying to create rules for them and trying to dictate what they do with their lives. That ain't your place. They talk about their ex too much. They're not over it. So, bottom line, if they do, even if they're really good people, they're just not ready, and that kind of goes back to the going from one connection to the other. There needs to be time and space to kind of, like, process and, like, get over some shit. Texting WYD. So that one's a big one for me, and a lot of people are probably like, "Damn it, I did that." Yeah, that's a big red flag for me. I feel like if you're going to message somebody that you're interested in, be interesting, right? Be interesting. Say something interesting. Do something different. Don't just be like, WYD to, like, every fucking person. It's posters of half naked or fully naked women in their bedroom. I feel like that's a huge turnoff because it shows how shallow their interests are, right? They're not looking for love, they're looking for lust, and it's like, I feel like, which is fine if you want to be in a connection that's like that, but set the difference, right? Like, don't, if you're pursuing a long-term relationship with somebody, that's probably a good indication about, where they're at, right? So, just make sure you're on the same page with who you're, and like I said, some red flags can be green flags depending on, and I said that in my video last night, but depending on what you're looking for, right? Because some people aren't looking for a traditional relationship. Some people aren't looking, for for that. There's, a million different ways that people connect with one another. So, this is subjective. These are like red flags for if you're pursuing a like relationship with somebody. I haven't even thought to cover if you're pursuing short term, like friends with benefits or whatever the case. I honestly wouldn't know the guidelines on that, if there are any. Wanting to be exclusive too soon. I feel like you should take time to really get to know them before making it exclusive. I've done this, you get in those feelings where you're like, oh, I like this person, they're pretty cool, and then and you jump the gun, and and I feel like it's better to not jump the gun. It's better to just take your time with it. What's the rush? If you plan on being with them for the rest of your life or whatever, even for the time being, there's no reason to rush to the finish line, right? Like, take your time, get to know them, make a friend out of them, right? Like, build a strong, solid connection, and then, like, eventually, I would even probably say, like, in some cases, it might even be better to have sex before getting into a relationship with people. And that's an unpopular opinion. But I do think that, like, you should know that you connect on all levels. Because, I don't believe in waiting until you're married. And I don't believe that, like, I believe that it's something you should definitely do with somebody you have a connection with. Some people want to do it with people they don't have a connection with, so that's very subjective, like I've said before. Someone's at the doorbell camera. Let's see. Too many selfies. They're egotistical. Faking pregnancy symptoms. They're trying to get knocked up to trap you. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, so don't fall into the trap. Interrogating you in the early phase. I feel like bombarding people with questions isn't actually a way of getting to know them, right? There's a difference between talking and communicating, right? And I feel that, like, you should, if you strive to get to know somebody, I think it was, who was it that said it? It was, oh my god. I literally just saw the thing. But basically, it says, if you want to get to know somebody, you need to, like, spend time with them, right? It's what you hear isn't, what they say they are and what other people say they are. It really matches up with who they really are, because a lot of the times we struggle with it. Self-awareness, right? And so the best way to get to know a person is to sit in their presence, be there, watch what they do, their actions. Who are they, who are they in that sense? And I've gotten to the end of my list. But yeah, those are some red flags that I thought of. And if you guys have any more questions for a future live feed, please put it in the comments. I'm super open to that, and I know that we're going to be doing another one in a couple days here, so yes. But that's what I have for you. Namaste. I love you guys, and I'll catch you later.